Hi, I'm Greg Pollock, and this is my fourth Founders Talk. It has an alternate title, Team Craftsmanship, How to Put People First. And in the next hour, I'm going to be going over a bunch of different principles that I learned over the last year or two, all centered around what it means to put people first. If you like this Founders Talk, I suggest you check out the other three that I have posted. If you just Google Greg Pollock Founders Talk or just search for Founders Talk on Code School, you can find them. We're going to start out with a quote from Steve Blank. He's recognized as creating the customer development methodology, which launched the lean startup movement. And he says, the best ideas in the hands of a B team is worse than a B idea in the hands of a world-class team. So really, people are often more important than the idea itself. When it comes to investors, I've also heard that same idea put like this. A B idea with an A team is an A, and an A idea with a B team is a C. So again, it's all about the teams, less about the idea. It's all about the execution and this team. So how do you build an A team? Some people say it's about hiring slowly and firing fast, and sure, that will help. But it's about setting things in motion properly when you start. It's about giving people the attention they deserve. It's about building the right team. Now, if you're a programmer and you want to build a big application, you don't just like code it up and deploy it, right? You have to do more planning than that. You've got to nurture it. It takes upkeep. It demands listening to your customers, getting feedback, and then improving it. It's not something that just happens overnight. People are the same way. You've got to nurture people. About 7 years ago, I was big into Ruby on Rails and into that community, and I started seeing some of the developers that I most respected creating these amazing work environments. Companies like HashRocket, Pivotal Labs, Thoughtbot. They got together all these talented people and created these great places to work, and I was envious. I had friends that were local, friends that were just as smart. Couldn't we create something like that? So it all started with an email to them where I said, what would be your optimal work environment? And I listened, and they said things like, well, it's a family-friendly atmosphere, and we don't want to have to come into work every day. Maybe we can work from home on some days. And I didn't realize it then, but I was planting the seeds for what would be an amazing culture at NV Labs and eventually Code School. These are some people that work at Code School. We're now up to about 50 people, and this isn't even all of them. It's a group of people that cares a lot about creating a work environment that's fun, where you can hang out with your friends, where you can trust people, and most important of all, that you can be yourself and you can speak up. And that matters a great deal to me and all of them. Life is too short to work in bad work environments. Can you think of a time when you were in one of those environments where maybe you were afraid to speak up, where you didn't feel like your ideas even mattered, or that anybody would listen to them? Or maybe you were stuck with so much bureaucracy that you knew nothing could actually get done. This obviously sucks. There's this great quote, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Yeah, sound familiar? So when communication breaks down, you're in a work environment where people might not be at the top of the totem pole. So what would a communication utopia look like? Can you imagine what it would feel like where you're in a work environment where your ideas or input were always listened to? Where you could give someone feedback and know it wasn't dismissed, discounted, or made that person feel bad? Where you want to work with people that genuinely care about you and your happiness, who want to see you improve by giving you guidance. Doesn't everybody want guidance when it comes from somebody who cares? Guidance that's clear, useful, practical, and unambiguous. Sounds nice, right? This is something we strive for here at Code School, and it's something we can always improve on. And in the remainder of this talk, I'm going to give you 22 things you can do to improve communication and culture. So if you're a startup, if you keep some of these things in mind, it might increase your chance of success. Or if you're a team member in a bigger organization, I'm going to give you some things you can take back to your team so you can improve the communication and the culture. I've talked a lot in my previous Founders Talks about the importance of one-on-ones, so I won't spend too much time here. But they seem to me the most important part of keeping employees engaged and happy. Why is this? It ensures that employees feel listened to. If you're working at a job and you start to feel like your ideas aren't listened to and your feedback, no one really cares, how happy are you going to be at that job? Probably not very happy. If people are reporting to you and you're not doing one-on-ones, it's only a matter of time before your most valuable employee quits. That's how strongly I feel about this. Another important part of one-on-ones and working with people in general is giving effective guidance. Think about a time when you've been given effective guidance. Could have been a teacher, could have been a boss, where they gave you input and maybe it was hard to hear at first. But because of that, you are able to do some of your best work. We all want that, right? If we're in a position where we're doing creative work that we love and we're taking risks, we're hoping that someone has our back and is helping us thrive. Yet guidance can sometimes be really tough to hear or give. I mean, we're brought up in a society that says if you can't say something nice, don't say something at all. And often, like me, we care a great deal about being likable. That might be our weakness. And we're afraid of how unlikable it might make us if we tell someone and give them that guidance that's hard for them to hear. We might make them feel defensive by giving them direct input. Which brings me to this guidance graph, which is something I got from Kim Scott, who used to work at Google. Here you can see on the y-axis we have clarity, x-axis we have caring, and this starts with a story. Back when I worked at mp3.com, there was this guy, we'll call him Tim. And I knew when I got stuck and I needed to figure out how to pipe a bunch of Linux commands together, I could go to him and ask for help, but I hated going to him. I remember creeping into his office, he was sitting at his computer, like 4 monitors, and I'd be like, "Hey, Tim," and I could see him take a deep breath, and he would slowly turn back to me and look at me and, "Yeah, Greg, what can I do for you?" And I could tell he wasn't happy to see me. But he always had the right answers, and he would always show me exactly how to do. And in this case, on this guidance graph, where was he? Well, he was in the top left. Because, well, his guidance was very clear and helpful, but it was also clear that he didn't care that much about me, which sucked. So what about on the bottom left? Go to the bottom left. We've all had this person here. This is what I'm going to call the asshole boss, which doesn't give you good clarity, nor do they really care. Obviously, that's not good. In the bottom right, it's almost even more dangerous than the bottom right. This is where you end up with somebody who is too nice to give effective guidance. This is where you end up getting fired or let go because, well, it wasn't communicated to you what they were expecting because they didn't want to hurt your feelings. Oh, that would be awful. We don't want that. So obviously the point you want to go for is in the top right. Now, guidance here might be hard to hear because it should be direct and clear, but you know it comes from a good place. You know the person giving it has your back and wants to see you improve. So it's important to strive for giving direct and clear guidance and at the same time doing it in a way that expresses caring. Or better yet, nurture the relationships around you so people just trust that you care. Guidance is most effective when it's given immediately. I was at this meeting a couple weeks ago where we had a couple mentors in the room and there was a startup that was going over their quarterly progress. And it was clear about 30 minutes into it that they were doing most of the talking and not really asking for much help. And the startup, it was the guy who ran it, the founder was a friend of mine, so I was like, oh, I have to tell him somehow that we should get to that discussion part where he asked for help. And so I got out my phone and I was like, I could text him. I'll just text him. Like, I could really be great if you could be more conversational. And unfortunately, there was no good signal. It didn't go through, and I'm like, great, but I should tell him this. But maybe I'll bring him one-on-one afterwards, but wait, I should just do this. I should give this feedback immediately. Okay, I'm gonna go out on a limb. So I said, hey guys, I'm noticing that I'm wanting to help, but it seems like this conversation is a little one-sided. Could we get to that? Are there things that these other mentors in the room and me could help with? Are there problems that we could get to? Because I'd love to help and I want to use this time effectively. And you know what happened? The other mentor said, yeah, Greg, I really appreciate you speaking up. I'm feeling the same way. I took that risk and I gave that feedback immediately. Other way I've done this is after an employee gives a presentation in front of a big group, they did an amazing job. I make sure right after that, take them aside after the meeting's done. Hey, I just want to let you know you did an amazing job with that presentation and I was really impressed. Or this also where I was in a meeting where I noticed one of my directors was on their phone. And it was really important for me that they contributed. But I noticed that I was like, why are they checked out? And so I stopped and I said, hey, I'm noticing it's really important to me that you contribute to what we're working on. I think your input is going to be really valuable. And I'm finding myself worried that since you're on your phone, you're not engaged. But that might be my story. And they spoke up and go, oh, you want okay, Greg, I'll dive in. Also, guidance should be in person, not over email, not over chat, but one-on-one. This is how it's most meaningful and impactful. Has to be in person, especially if it's guidance on something less than positive. Expressing concern in person will show that you do care, and people are more likely to feel less defensive. Also, one thing is, I think most people can get to this point where they do one-on-one feedback, but the real challenge, as I mentioned with some previous stories, is to get to the point where you take the risk and you give feedback in person. This can actually be really good. If someone in your meeting is exhibiting a behavior that's not acceptable, for example, you could choose to talk to them after the meeting. Bring them aside after the meeting. Sorry, hey, just want to let you know you were doing this and that. I found myself really bothered by that. Or in the middle of the meeting, you can say, hey, Tim, let's use Tim again. Hey, Tim, I'm noticing that I'm a little bothered that you're doing this and I'm afraid you're not engaged with what we're doing. Are you engaged? And then see what they say. By doing that in person, you're doing two things. You're showing the whole group, everybody else there, what is acceptable and what isn't. And you're also, since you're doing it in front of everyone and you're forcing them to respond, they're more likely to be held accountable for that because you made a statement. And if they say, yes, I won't do this, they're not just saying that to you, they're saying that to everybody else in the group. So they're more likely to actually follow through with that. It's really important when it comes to communication that you deal with your bad habits. I already talked about two. There was one with that meeting where the founder did all the talking and didn't let other people add to the conversation. There's two with that coworker on their phone. Another one that I've seen is when people get on their laptops in meetings. When you see people doing this, when I see people doing this, I feel like they're not engaged. I'm worried they're not engaged. That's about me. Notice I don't make it about them. I could say, hey, Joe, there's no way you're paying attention. Or I could say, hey, Joe, I'm noticing I'm a little concerned. It's really important to me that you add to this conversation and add to this discussion. I really want your feedback, and I start to worry that you're not engaged when I see you on your laptop. I know I couldn't do both. Are you able to track this conversation? Notice how that question was curious. I've also heard, can I ask an awkward question? I'm a little distracted by Joe being on his laptop. Is anybody else? That's fair too. It's also important to be aware of your own bad habits. I know I have a bad habit of interrupting people with my face. Seriously. So what does that look like? Someone's talking, I'm listening to them, and I hear them say something that gives me an idea, and I go, and I just interrupted them with my face. And that communicated two things to them. One, I've got something I want to say, and two, well, I might not be completely listening to them because I'm thinking now about what I want to say. And that's not good. I want people to know that I'm engaged in listening to them because I do care about what they say. I don't want them to think otherwise. So I work on that, and I've let the other directors and team members know that that's my thing that I'm working on. And when they see me do that, they look over and they kind of point, and I know. And I try to do better next time. Lots of people complain about bad meetings, but meetings aren't bad. Bad meetings are bad. And if you find yourself asking, what am I doing here? Or do I need to be here? Odds are you're not the only one, and there's something that you can do about it. Meetings are hard. To get them right, it's difficult, and people usually aren't that good at them. So when you start suspecting a meeting could be better, my recommendation is to say at the end of the meeting, hey guys, before we go, could we spend 5 minutes talking about how we could run this meeting better next time? You'll be surprised what people say. They'll probably say what you're thinking. Beware of your human tendency to make up stories. So I'm going to give you a little example of that. It's years ago, Monday morning stand-up at my job, and I just spent the prior week finishing half of Project A. And it's time for me to speak. I got half of Project A done last week, and I'll be working on it this week. To which my boss responds, oh, Greg, Project B is where I need you to be working right now. Where are we with that? So what all got communicated with that statement? First off, it was my boss that told me to work on Project A to begin with. And now he seems to be blaming me for working on the wrong thing. So I'm feeling underappreciated, maybe a little defensive. So what did I do in the moment? Well, I just said, okay, I'll work on Project B, and I went off my business and told myself that my boss doesn't appreciate me and he's kind of an asshole, and that sucks. But what I wish I would have done is I wish I would have gotten curious. Takes a lot of guts. Maybe it would have sounded like this. Hey, before I go and work on Project B, which I know is very important, could I ask a question about Project A? Sure, Greg, go ahead. Notice here that I validated his concern. I said Project B is important, and I also asked if it was okay if I gave some feedback. Last time we talked on Monday, you told me Project A was important, so that's where I spent my time. What changed? Notice here I got curious. There's going to be times where you're at work and someone says something that just doesn't sound right, and it might make you feel defensive. Please have the guts to speak up in the moment and ask for clarification if it doesn't sound right. It's hard, but it's really important as a leader. Often we make up stories when we're working with people who we don't feel genuinely care about us, really on that side of the graph. And when we get defensive, that can come out in lots of different ways. Here's a list of common defenses. Can you think of the ones you do most often? Can you think of a situation where you felt defensive and you wish you hadn't? Where being defensive really didn't serve any purpose at all? I've been caught in a few of these, like endless explaining when I don't feel like I'm being heard, or being cynical about the feedback somebody just told me. What do they know anyway? Remember, no one can make you feel anything but you. If you get defensive, it's because you let yourself get defensive. So the first step to improving your defensive mindset is to become aware of the way you're feeling and understand that you have a choice. You can choose not to let yourself shut down or be critical. I find myself getting defensive when it comes to conflict resolution. Do you ever feel like you want to give feedback or guidance and you think to yourself, well, it's not my place? Well, it should be. Let me give you an example. At Code School, we had a senior member of the team who started to notice that there was a junior member that he thought maybe wasn't working very hard. What did he do? He went to that person's direct report, another senior person, and said, hey, you should probably know this person's not really focusing, I don't think. And maybe that person talked to that junior person and worked it out. But that's horrible. It's a horrible way to work. There's a term for that. It's called triangulation, right? Because we've got a triangle going on here. And the biggest problem with that is it's a communication issue. People aren't speaking to each other side to side. And this is how silos are created between teams and team members. The issue is that team members aren't talking and giving each other feedback. Optimally, that senior person should feel comfortable enough to go to that junior person and give them that feedback. What would it sound like? It could sound like, hey, I know we have that deadline we need to reach, and I'm afraid we're not going to reach it. And I notice myself getting uncomfortable when I walk by and you're not working on that. And I just want to make sure, are we still on track? Or are you still on track? So again, coming from a place of caring and curiosity. Now, that doesn't go just for senior team members to junior team members. The junior team members should be able to communicate and give each other feedback as well so they can improve in the same way. The best thing that you can do as a boss or even as a team member, when someone comes to you about feedback about somebody else, the best thing you can do is to tell them, please, could you please go tell that person that? Whether it's good or even bad. Very recently at Code School, we made it an official policy of no triangulation, right? So when someone comes to you with feedback about somebody else, no. You go right to that person. If you have feedback about anybody, you go right to that person. You don't triangulate. You don't go to their boss. You don't go to their teammate. You don't go to the CEO. You give feedback directly to them. I have a tendency that when people come to me with a problem, I want to give them a solution. And if I want to be a good coach, is the best thing I can do give them the answer? No. The best thing I can do is help them figure it out themselves. Because when it comes down to it, who is the best person to solve your problems? Who has the most evidence to solve your problems? Is it me? No, it's you. So you are the right person to solve your problem. And often people kind of know what the right answer might be. They have some suspicion. And the best thing that we can do as mentors or as coaches is help them figure it out. So the next time someone comes to you and says, I'm really frustrated by X, what would it look like to help them find a solution? Well, it usually involves asking them questions. So when someone says, this is really frustrating, you can ask them, well, what's frustrating about it? Or you could say, yeah, that's really rough. I've been through that before. And then maybe, can you think of a way to make it less frustrating? Or what's the result you're hoping for? Or what do you think could be different next time? Then maybe, what are you currently doing to affect that change that you want? Is it working for you? No? Okay, well then what could you be doing differently next time? And of course, it's important that this all comes from a place of genuine caring and not patronizing. And just because they came to you about the problem doesn't mean that you need to be a part of the solution. It's kind of self-centered to assume that. So there's a question that I like asking. When someone comes to me, they're having a problem, or they're even feeling defensive, I like to ask, what would be most helpful to you right now? It's not about me. It's not what can I do for you. It's what would be most helpful to you. Because there might be other people that can help you solve it, or you might be able to solve it best yourself. By asking that question, that might be the realization you come to. The key to building and growing a successful business has a lot to do with learning how to delegate. And as you hire people, they'll come to you asking how to do something. They'll say, hey, I've got this choice to make, either A or B. This is a massive learning opportunity. You could try to give them the best answer, or you could ask, what do you think? Well, I always try to keep this in mind and ask, what do you think more often? Take a moment to complete this sentence. When it comes to work, I'm just not very good at... What is that? I might say, I'm just not very good at remembering people's names, or I'm just not very good at eliminating distractions. This is something called a fixed mindset. It's a belief that a skill is fixed, meaning that no matter how hard you try to get better at something, there's a limit to your capabilities. What's the opposite of a fixed mindset? Well, it's a growth mindset. It believes you can get good at anything with enough practice, and improvement is always possible. If you think skills are fixed, are you going to try very hard to get better at them? If you think you're limited, probably not. Are you going to care about getting feedback? If you think you're not very good, probably not. You'll probably feel defensive when you get feedback. Makes sense, right? So how do you encourage this growth mindset? Well, you can do it in two ways. The first thing, remember that thing you mentioned that you're not very good at? You can add the word yet. So do me a favor and go through that and think about it, and that you're not very good at it yet. I'm not very good at eliminating distractions yet. This is a growth mindset. You've turned this from a fixed to a growth mindset. Makes sense, right? If you apply yourself to doing something, you'll get better at it, no matter what it is. It may not be easy, but it's possible. There's this great quote by Henry Ford. He says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. If you've got a fixed mindset, it's going to be hard for you to put effort towards getting better. But if you think you can get better and you know you can get better, then you can, and you're more likely to succeed. The other way you can help change from a fixed to a growth mindset is through the way you give feedback, and specifically compliments. Saying, wow, you're a master at this. That's just saying that you've achieved mastery. Like it might be fixed there. That's a fixed mindset. So we could change this. We might say, wow, you worked hard on this, which is a growth mindset. That's complimenting the effort. What about this one? The finished product you created was perfect. Again, that's more fixed mindset. It was perfect. So next time I do it, well, I'm going to put pressure on myself to make it perfect, rather than saying, it's obvious you put a lot of effort into this. Growth mindset. The design you created was so impressive. Again, that feels more fixed to me, rather than saying, you obviously put a lot of work into the design and it shows. That feels more growth to me. So here at Code School, we try to complement the effort, which allows us all to be more growth mindset oriented. If you do some Googling around, there are a lot of studies out there which show that children who are complimented on their effort perform better than children who are complimented on the result. So it might sound like, wow, you got an A, you are so smart. Right? That's fixed mindset. Versus, wow, you got an A, you must have tried really hard. There's a difference there. One's fixed, one's growth. The child that hears, wow, you tried hard, that's why you got the A, is going to naturally try harder. Talking about compliments, it's really important when you're trying to create an environment of trust and care and kindness that you celebrate and appreciate as much as possible. This is something that I naturally haven't been that good at, but I'm getting better. Growth mindset. So what can you do? Well, here at Code School, we do things like handwritten thank you cards when somebody completes something. We give people public recognition when they complete something. We have lots of t-shirts and swag. Everybody likes that. When someone has a work anniversary, they've been here for a year, you can celebrate them. Taking the time to celebrate wins, birthdays, taking the time to get to know people. All this stuff shows that you care and value someone, which helps you gain trust, which will help you communicate more effectively and give that direct guidance when you need to. Remember in the beginning, when I asked this question, what would be your optimal work environment to my friends before we created NB Labs and Code School? I didn't realize it then, but what I was doing was painting a vision. And this isn't something that I really felt like I knew how to do, but somehow I did it along the way. And recently I heard of one way to think of this that I want to pass on to you. If you imagine 2 to 4 years from now, what would be the optimal work environment? What do you want to see in 2 to 4 years, either on your team or building a company? What does that look like? Painting a vision is simply that. It's simply imagining what you would like to create in your wildest dreams. I see a place where it's a family atmosphere, where we have unlimited vacation days, where we love what we do. That's painting a vision. People want to follow a shared vision, and this is what motivates them. This is what motivates people to work hard. And once you have a vision of where you want to head, there's a lot to be said about figuring out an aim and dwindling that down to a sentence. Once you have an aim, you have a direction, and everything can be measured against it. So when you want to create a new feature, you can think, well, is that new feature along this direction we're headed? Does it help us get where we're going? Or is it another direction? Okay, we won't do it. Your aim should answer the question, why do we exist? Let me give you some examples. Pluralsight's aim is to democratize professional technology learning, at least at the time that I'm making this video. Democratize meaning make available to everyone. Code School's aim is to enliven learning of new technologies. Enliven means to make something more entertaining, interesting, or appealing. Many people put many hours of thought into coming up with that sentence. But with that sentence, we can then come up with quarterly goals and yearly goals that all aim towards the same target. See, if everybody knows the destination, where you're aiming, then everybody in the organization knows when to say yes to something and when to say no. Because as you're sailing, you're going to see lots of islands. They might be quick wins, and you're going to have to decide, do we go there? Do we do that feature? Do we make that thing? Or is it not going to help us get where we need to go? Not towards our destination. Is it going to distract us? Or do we need to land at different islands? And sometimes you're sailing with multiple ships. That's kind of the way I look at Code School and Pluralsight. We're two ships with our own aim sailing in the same direction. And we need to know that we're always sailing together in the same direction, which in this case is to democratize professional technology learning. And with an aim, as I mentioned before, you can set goals. And this is something that we never did before we joined forces with Pluralsight because, well, I'm still learning a lot about doing planning when it comes to running a company. But Pluralsight helps show us how you can take the aim and you can come up with yearly and quarterly goals. Understand what it means to reach those goals and assign one person who's responsible for making those goals happen. Let me give you some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. Here are some of last year's goals at Code School. You can see we did things like 3 new paths, created a course builder, javascript.com, all of these. So these are last year's goals, and many of these broke out into smaller quarterly goals that we could try to achieve per quarter. So this is something that I highly recommend you take the time to do. You might be asking, what do goals and aim have to do with putting people first? It's a good question, but what happens to your team when the goals aren't clear and the aim's not clear? They don't know what direction you're sailing. Do the people in your organization work like they're on the same team or different teams? Often they find themselves going to those islands, going off course, because they don't know where they're sailing, where they're aiming for, and what their goals are. So with goals and a vision, everybody can understand what direction you're headed, and everybody can help sail that direction. Well, we've reached the end of my talk, but if you take one thing away from my talk, what do you think it's going to be? Big surprise. One-on-ones. Listening to people. Making them feel heard. That's where you start putting people first. All right. And that's my talk about team craftsmanship. Now, before I go, I need to give some credit where credit's due. A lot of these topics I learned from working with Key Talent Solutions from both Laura and Stephanie. This is a group of organizational psychologists that have come into our company to help do leadership coaching, culture surveys, so much planning, so much vision. Whenever there's any sort of conflict or change management, we've gone to them and they've helped us through the process better than we ever could have ourselves. So if you get to that point in your company where you've got growing pains, you want to maintain your culture, you need help getting from point A to point B in any way, give these guys an email or a call. Also, I've got my Creative Commons, used a bunch of images, and that's about it. So I hope you learned something that you can take back to your company and help improve their culture, communication, and help them put people first. Thank you for watching.